Jaxon and the Perpetual Nano-Plant, a short story written by Stephen Heumann, performed by Stephen Heumann. Jaxon pushed his broom, Childish Gambino's "This is America" blaring through his earbuds. The laboratory floor never needed sweeping, but Jaxon found wandering among the microscopes and colorful LED displays an enjoyable way to spend the hour between 11 p.m. and midnight. Plus, occasionally a late-working technician or science team lead would still be around and offer a bit of conversation to break up the dull janitorial grind. The windows looking down on Van Buren Street in the south side of Chicago helped with the monotony too. Trickles of rain cascaded like tiny waterfalls down the panes as a spring drizzle bathed the city. Each trail of liquid gave Jackson's errant imagination something to focus on, beyond dumping garbage and spraying Windex on hallway mirrors. Just another Tuesday night in paradise. A set of office keys dangled from a loop at the waist of his coveralls, jingling as they banged against one of the work tables. Running his hand along the counter's smooth surface, Jackson's fingers thumped against a droning 3D printer and a collection of empty test tubes. Bright green filament on the side of the device fed into an extruder and came out shaped like a collection of tiny hexagons an inch thick. What the printer's final product would look like, Jaxon could only guess, but he assumed it would be expensive and fragile. He popped his earbuds out and let them hang on his shoulders, pulling a small notepad and pen from his back pocket. Jaxon scribbled a few quick lines of poetry. "Green and clean," he whispered as he wrote. "Fragile and casual? The life of green grows fresh and clean. Hexagons in their state so fragile, the strength of many together, not casual." He shoved the paper back in his pocket along with the pen. "Not casual? God, that sucks," he spat. Jaxon scratched his armpit, blue company coveralls impeding his clawing. No life beyond the printer and a few screensaver-flashing computer monitors inspired Jackson's poetic brain. The thought of leaving the only interesting room in the building left his tongue parched. Once a week, he would mop under the tables of the 500-square-foot lab, but he could still smell the pine sol from 4 days earlier and knew he had no reason to linger. "Dr. Pollock's garbage," Jaxon realized with a grin. He trotted across the space to one of the side offices and opened the door on the dark room. A pale blue glow emanated from a glass box 2 feet square sitting on a work table covered in soldering irons and electrical wiring. In the center of the cube, a small inch-long metallic teardrop floated, attached to small tubes and cabling. The seed, as the doctors called it, glowed slightly with an azure light that Jaxon loved to stare at for inspiration. Jaxon had no idea what the little synthetic grain actually did, but he guessed it would cost a fortune and eventually change the world, or some other nonsense made up by the PR department. "Blue and hue," he whispered to himself. "That works better than green and clean, for sure." The little garbage can in the corner sat empty, nothing in the room having moved in the slightest over the past week. Maybe Dr. Pollock was on vacation. Finding no excuse to dawdle beyond watching the flashing lights of a police car drive by 10 stories below, Jaxon turned to leave, giving the blue seed one final glimpse before closing the door. He might as well move on to the bathrooms and his favorite pastime of plunging Dr. Zwick's private toilet. Whatever that guy ate, it wasn't healthy. Scanning his access card against the security pad, Jaxon tossed the broom into his cleaning cart and nudged his shoulder against the door. He grabbed one of his earbuds, preparing to pop it back into his right ear when something moved in his periphery. "Here, I got you, Jack," Dr. Pollock said, holding open the glass exit and reaching for the garbage can to help maneuver the plastic drum through the doorway. The man's brown and gray hair, normally slicked back with a bit of scented gel, looked tousled as if the doctor had recently woken from a nap. His loosened tie and wrinkled shirt added to an overall disheveled presentation. "You don't need to worry about the door, Dr. Pollock," Jaxon said with a smile. Dusting his palms on his coveralls, he reached over and shook the scientist's hand. "I didn't know you were still here so late." "I wasn't. I haven't been in for the past week. My plane just landed from San Francisco, and that conference I was telling you about last month." Jaxon pushed the garbage can into the hallway. "Man, if I were you, I'd be heading home to sleep, not to the office." "I slept on the plane," Pollock said. "Besides, I got a few ideas at the conference I wanted to try coding into the seed, and I couldn't wait. You know how it is when your brain just won't let you do anything until you stop and get your ideas out?" Jaxon smirked. He knew that feeling all too well, though not because of science and math. Since high school, his appreciation for poetry had been well known. His inability to write any verse worth reading was equally as legendary.